This isn't just a divorce. This is the story of Arthur Vance, a titan of tech worth $18 billion. When he decided to dump his quiet wife, Eleanor, he did it in the most brutal way possible. He didn't just file for divorce. He held a press conference. He strutted into that courtroom with his new mistress on his arm, ready to throw his wife a few $1 million in scraps. He thought he was the king. He thought he was untouchable. What he forgot was who signed the original checks. He was about to find out that the woman he called a trophy was actually the owner. Stay with us as we unravel the story of how one man's ego cost him everything. Arthur Vance didn't just walk, he conquered pavement. At 54, he was a specimen carved from granite, ego, and $1,000 an hour personal training. His suit, a deep charcoal Keaton, probably cost more than the average car, but it was his presence that filled his penthouse office. The glass walls overlooked the entire San Francisco Bay, a god's-eye view that Arthur felt he had personally earned. Below him, the ants, his ants, scurried, powered by the logistics software his company, Vance Dynamics, had perfected. Helios, the AI was called, and Arthur was its sun god. He clicked a solid gold pen against his desk, a slab of reclaimed wood from a 17th century warship. His phone buzzed, a text from Sienna. "Thinking of you, wearing the red dress tonight, the one you like." A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. Sienna Hayes, 26 years old, a former brand ambassador, who now held the full-time job of being Arthur Vance's future. She was everything his wife, Eleanor, was not. She was loud, she was demanding, she was thrillingly, gorgeously public. Eleanor was ballast. He buzzed his assistant. "Catherine, cancel my 5 o'clock, and get Harrison on the line, now." Harrison, his lawyer, picked up on the first ring. "Arthur." "It's time," Arthur said, swiveling his chair to look at the Golden Gate Bridge. "File it. Today." "The generosity package is ready," Harrison said, his voice a smooth, reptilian hiss. 50 million liquid, the Aspen House, lifetime alimony of $200K a year. "She'll be comfortable." "Comfortable?" Arthur scoffed. "She's been comfortable for 20 years. She did nothing. She raised the kids, which the nannies mostly did, and she cut ribbons at stupid charity galas. 50 million is more than generous. It's a gift." "And the other matter?" Harrison asked. "Sienna?" "She's irrelevant to this. I'll take her to dinner tonight. I'll take her to the courthouse. I don't care. This is a business transaction. I am decommissioning a failed asset. Make Eleanor understand that. I want this fast. I want it clean. And I want her signature before my flight to Monaco on Friday." "She might fight," Harrison cautioned. "Community property in California. She's entitled to half of the growth of Vance Dynamics since the marriage." Arthur laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Half? Half of my sweat? Half of my genius? She was a software coder, a good one, 20 years ago. She wrote a single piece of code. I built the empire. Don't let a lawyer get ideas, Harrison. Crush them. Bury them in paperwork. Make her understand that a fight will leave her with nothing but legal bills." "Understood, Arthur. I'll have the papers served at the house within the hour." "No," Arthur said, a cruel whim striking him. "Don't. I'll do it. I'll take her to La Safia tonight. I'll tell her myself." He wanted to see her face. He wanted to see the moment the woman who had become a piece of comfortable beige furniture in his life finally realized she was being thrown out with the trash. That evening, the restaurant was a cathedral of hushed wealth. La Safia, a 3 Michelin-star establishment, required reservations 6 months in advance. Arthur had simply called the owner that afternoon. Eleanor sat opposite him, looking exactly as she always did. Elegant, understated, and invisible. She wore a simple navy blue sheath dress. Her brown hair, lightly greying at the temples, was pulled back. She was still a handsome woman, but the fire Arthur remembered from their days at Stanford was long gone, banked to a dull ember. "This is nice, Arthur," she said, her voice quiet. A surprise. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is perfect," he said, waving away the sommelier. "Champagne, the 96 Dom, a celebration." "Oh, what are we celebrating?" Arthur leaned forward, placing his manicured hands on the table. He gave her the smile he reserved for failed executives he was about to fire. "We're celebrating a new chapter, for both of us. Eleanor, I'm divorcing you." He watched her. He waited for the tears, the tremor in her lip, the gasp. Nothing. Eleanor Vance looked at him, her gaze clear and analytical, as if he were a line of faulty code. She picked up her water glass, took a small sip, and placed it down. "I see," she said. Arthur was thrown. "You see? That's it? I'm with someone else, Eleanor. I'm with Sienna. I'm going to marry her." "Sienna Hayes," Eleanor said. It wasn't a question. "The one from page 6 at the Monaco Grand Prix. The one you denied were in a relationship with." "Yes, I know." "Good," Arthur snapped, irritated by her calm. "Then this is easy. My lawyer, Harrison, has prepared a package. It's very, very generous. $50 million. The house in Aspen. You won't have to worry about a thing." "50 million," she repeated, her head tilted. "Arthur, Vance Dynamics is valued at $18 billion. And I built it." He spat, his voice low. "You've done nothing but spend my money for 2 decades. You take the deal, or I take you to court and prove you abandoned the marriage, that you contributed nothing, and I will leave you with so little you'll be applying for a job as a greeter." The champagne arrived. The waiter poured 2 glasses. Eleanor looked at the bubbles. Then she looked back at him. "You shouldn't have done this, Arthur." "I shouldn't have. I've given you the best years of your—" "No," she interrupted. "A first. You shouldn't have been so public, so cruel. You could have been kind, you could have been discreet. But you had to bring her into it. You had to humiliate me." "Humiliation is the price of failure, Ellie," he said, using the old dead pet name. "You failed to keep up." "Is that what this is about?" she mused. "Me keeping up?" She finally smiled. It was a cold, alien thing that didn't reach her eyes. "All right, Arthur. You want a show? You'll get one. You want to go to court? I'll see you there." She picked up her glass of champagne. "To new chapters." She drank it. Then she stood up, placed her napkin on the table, and walked out of the restaurant, leaving Arthur Vance alone with 2 full glasses and a simmering, unfamiliar flicker of dread. The day of the preliminary hearing was a media circus, and Arthur had orchestrated every second of it. He didn't just go to the San Francisco Superior Court, he arrived. He timed his exit from his black Maybach to perfectly sync with the phalanx of photographers he'd anonymously tipped off. The flashbulbs popped like miniature supernovas, and on his arm, clinging to him like she was the last life raft, was Sienna Hayes. She was astonishingly, inappropriately beautiful for a divorce hearing. She wore a skin-tight, white, Victoria Beckham dress that screamed, "I won." Her sunglasses were massive, her lips were red, and she stroked Arthur's arm possessively for every camera. Arthur lapped it up. He was a conqueror, parading his spoils. He wanted Eleanor to see this. He wanted the world to see that he was upgrading. He was shedding his old, tired skin for a new, glittering one. "Mr. Vance! Mr. Vance! Is this your new partner?" "Arthur, how much is this divorce going to cost you?" "Sienna, are you the reason for the split?" Arthur just held up a hand, a beneficent king silencing his subjects. "This is a private, painful day," he said, his voice laced with faux sadness. "I only wish Eleanor the best. I am here to be fair, to be generous." His legal team, led by the impeccably dressed Harrison, parted the sea of reporters. They were a team of 5 sharks, all carrying identical leather briefcases. They looked expensive and lethal. They entered the stuffy, wood-panelled courtroom, Department 504, and took the right side. Arthur sat at the counsel table, a move of pure power. He was his legal team. Sienna blew him a kiss and sat in the front row of the gallery, crossing her long legs. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters scribbled. This was the show. And then, at 8:59 a.m., Eleanor Vance entered. She came through the side door, not the main entrance. She was alone. No entourage, no lawyers flanking her. She wore a simple, sleeveless black dress by Acris. Her hair was in its usual simple bun. She carried a small, black leather portfolio. She looked like a librarian who had wandered into a prize fight. Arthur smirked and leaned over to whisper something to Harrison, who chuckled. Sienna openly snickered from the gallery. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Maria Reyes entered. She was a small, stern woman in her 60s, with a reputation for suffering neither fools nor billionaires. She sat, put on her glasses, and stared at the docket. "Case 904B, Vance via Vance," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "This is a preliminary hearing on spousal support and asset division. Mr. Harrison, I see your team. Ms. She looked at the empty seat next to Eleanor. Eleanor stood. "I am representing myself, Your Honor." The courtroom gasped. Arthur burst out laughing. He couldn't help it. He actually, physically laughed. A loud, barking haw. Judge Reyes's eyes snapped to him. "Mr. Vance, is something amusing you?" "My apologies, Your Honor," Arthur said, wiping a tear from his eye. "I'm just surprised. I didn't realize my wife had passed the bar." "She has not," a new voice said. A woman entered from the same side door Eleanor had. She was in her 40s, with a sharp, angular face and hair cut in a severe black bob. She wore a practical, grey suit and carried a single, overstuffed briefcase. She looked, if possible, even less impressive than Eleanor. "Anne Harding, Your Honor," the woman said, setting her briefcase down, "of Harding and Associates. I am representing Ms. Vance. Apologies for my lateness. We were filing the amended petition." Harrison leaned over to Arthur. "Harding? Never heard of her. She's a probate lawyer, estate planning. My God, she's out of her depth." Arthur's good mood returned. This was even better. A small-time probate lawyer. He'd be in Monaco by tomorrow. "Very well, Miss Harding," Judge Reyes said. "Mr. Harrison, you may begin." Harrison stood. He was a performer, and this was his stage. "Your Honor, members of the gallery," he began. "My client, Mr. Arthur Vance, is a man of vision, a man who single-handedly built an $18 billion empire from scratch. He is also a man of great generosity." He gestured to Eleanor, a move that was almost pitying. "My client has known Miss Vance for 25 years. He has provided her with a lifestyle beyond the dreams of mortal men. Now that this partnership has, sadly, run its course, he wishes to see her comfortably settled. He has, therefore, prepared a severance package that is, frankly, staggering in its scope." He picked up a document. "We are offering a one-time, lump-sum payment of $50 million, tax-free." A collective inhalation from the gallery. $50 million. Sienna in the front row looked at her nails, bored. Furthermore, Harrison continued, Mr. Vance will sign over the deed to the 14,000-square-foot estate in Aspen, Colorado, and the chalet in Gstaad, Switzerland. He will also provide a lifetime spousal support payment of $200,000 per year, adjusted for inflation. Arthur leaned back, steepled his fingers, and looked at Eleanor. His expression was clear. Take the money and run. You will never, ever get a better deal. He will, of course, retain his home in San Francisco, his jet, his yacht, and, naturally, his company, Vance Dynamics, which is, and always has been, his sole and separate property, built by his sole and separate efforts. Harrison sat down. The message was clear. This wasn't an offer. It was a command. Judge Reyes looked over her glasses at Eleanor and her lawyer. Ms. Harding, your response. Anne Harding stood. She was so still, so quiet, she seemed to suck the sound out of the room. She opened her simple portfolio. Your Honor, she said, her voice flat and clear. We thank Mr. Harrison for his theatrical presentation. Harrison's smile twitched. My client, Ms. Vance, must respectfully reject the offer in its entirety. This time the gasp was louder. Arthur's face hardened. He leaned forward. Reject? Harrison stood up. Your Honor, if I may, Ms. Vance is being poorly advised. $50 million is an incredible sum. If she attempts to litigate for 50% of the marital assets, we will countersue. We will prove gross negligence of marital duty, and we will bury her in discovery. She will walk away with nothing. Judge Reyes looked at Harding. He's correct on one point, Ms. Harding. It is a significant offer. On what grounds are you rejecting it? Anne Harding clasped her hands. Your Honor, she said, Mr. Harrison and Mr. Vance are operating under a profound and fundamental misunderstanding of the facts. And what fact would that be? Arthur himself interjected, unable to stay silent. Anne Harding turned her head and looked directly at Arthur. It was the first time any emotion had crossed her face, a flicker of icy contempt. The fact, Mr. Vance, she said, that you seem to believe you own Vance Dynamics. Arthur's laugh died in his throat. What? I am Vance Dynamics. I founded it. No, Anne Harding said, turning back to the judge. You didn't. She slid a single, stapled packet of paper across the desk to the bailiff, who handed it to Judge Reyes. Your Honor, we are rejecting Mr. Vance's offer to give my client a portion of the company, because my client is not interested in 50% of Vance Dynamics. Arthur smirked. That's right. She's getting nothing. Harding waited for him to finish. She's not interested in 50%, because she already owns 100% of it. The courtroom exploded. Sienna shot up in her seat. What? Harrison's face went white. Your Honor, that is ludicrous. It's insane. It's a lie. Mr. Vance, Arthur roared, leaping to his feet. You tell this ambulance chaser to shut her mouth. You tell her. Silence, Judge Reyes bellowed. The gavel cracked against the wood. Mr. Vance, sit down. Mr. Harrison, control your client. Ms. Harding, you have 30 seconds to explain that statement before I hold you in contempt. Anne Harding didn't flinch. It's quite simple, Your Honor. Mr. Harrison is correct that Mr. Vance is a man of vision, but he has a very poor memory. We have presented the court with the original, unamended, 2005 Articles of Incorporation for Vance Dynamics, a Delaware C corporation. She paused. The sole listed incorporator, founder, and 100% shareholder is a Ms. Eleanor Hayes, my client's maiden name. The courtroom was a vacuum. All air, all sound had been sucked out. Arthur Vance stood frozen, his mouth half open. He looked at Eleanor. She was watching him, her face unreadable. "Your Honor," Harrison stammered, his bravado gone, replaced by a high, thin panic. This is a clerical error, a corporate shell game. It's meaningless. We have SEC filings, board minutes, Wired magazine covers. They all name Arthur Vance as the founder and CEO. CEO, yes, Anne Harding agreed smoothly. Founder, that's debatable. Owner, absolutely not. Judge Reyes was reading the document, her expression grim. "Ms. Harding, this is compelling. But Mr. Harrison has a point. Why has this never been corrected? Why has Mr. Vance operated as the owner for nearly 2 decades? For the answer to that, Your Honor, Harding said, we have to go back to 2005, to a diner in Palo Alto. And as she spoke, Arthur Vance finally remembered. The dread that had flickered in La Saphire returned, now a tidal wave of ice. Flashback, 2005. The Moonlight Diner, Palo Alto. 2:08 a.m. The air smelled of stale coffee and burned hash browns. Arthur, then 34, hadn't slept in 3 days. He was failing. His first startup, Apex Logistics, had just imploded, incinerating $2 million of investor money. He was not just broke, he was in debt. His old partners were suing him for fraud. He was toxic. Across from him sat Eleanor Hayes, then 32. She was a senior coder at a small, boring database company, but she was, in Arthur's words, scary brilliant. "They're going to attach everything, Ellie," he said, rubbing his eyes. "My car, my bank account. They'll put a lien on anything I ever try to build." "So, we build it where they can't find it," she said simply. She slid her laptop across the sticky table. On the screen was a block of code. It was an algorithm she'd been working on as a pet project. She called it Helios. It was a predictive logistics model, an AI that could learn shipping routes, weather patterns, and fuel costs to optimize a supply chain in real time. It wasn't just good, it was revolutionary. "This," Arthur said, his salesman's pulse starting to throb, "this isn't a project, Ellie. This is an empire." "It's just a model," she blushed. "It's everything," he said, grabbing her hands. "But I can't be the face of it. My name is Mud. Those Apex bastards. They'll claim this was built on their time. They'll sue us into oblivion." He leaned in, his eyes electric. "We have to protect it. We have to shield it. We form a new company, a Delaware C Corp, anonymous, clean." "Okay," she said. "Vance Hayes Industries." "No," he said, more sharply than he intended. "My name can't be on it. Anywhere. It has to be 100% clean. It has to be in your name, your maiden name. Eleanor Hayes, sole incorporator. 100% of the stock." She looked nervous. "All of it? But Arthur, it's your idea too. The sales, the vision." "It's a temporary measure," he insisted. "A formality. Just until the statute of limitations on the Apex lawsuits runs out. 5, maybe 6 years. Then we restructure. We'll sign a private agreement, you and me, 50-50. But for the world, for the law, this company is yours. It's the only way to protect our future." He had been so convincing. He had been so in love. Or at least, he'd loved her idea. She had agreed. Anne Harding filed the paperwork the next day. Vance Dynamics was born, with Arthur's vision, the name, and Eleanor's ownership, the shares. Present day, and that restructuring, Your Honor, Anne Harding's voice sliced through Arthur's memory, never happened. "Why?" asked Judge Reyes. "Because," Harding said, "Vance Dynamics became successful, wildly successful. And Mr. Vance discovered he enjoyed being the sole founder. He enjoyed the Wired magazine covers, and as long as he was the CEO and chairman of the board, he had operational control. He could pay himself any salary he wanted, use the company jet, and live like a king. Why would he want to share that?" "He forgot," Eleanor Vance said. speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft, but it carried in the dead, silent room. Arthur stared at her. "He just forgot," she repeated. "He forgot about the Apex creditors. He forgot about the diner. He forgot the company was in my name. He told the lie so many times that he built it from scratch, that he started to believe it. This is—" Harrison was choking. "This is fraud. She committed fraud. She's been hiding this." "On the contrary," Harding said, "my client has been the perfect, silent partner. She never interfered. She let Mr. Vance run his company. She paid her taxes on the K-1 forms from the C Corp, which Mr. Vance's own accountants prepared and sent to her. We have 18 years of them." She dropped a second, massive binder on the table. Thud. "Mr. Vance," Harding continued, "never bothered to change the ownership, because doing so, after the company was worth billions, would trigger the largest capital gains tax event in history. It was easier and cheaper for him to just pretend he was the owner." "He is the owner!" Harrison shrieked. "Then show me the stock certificate," Harding replied. "Show me the bill of sale. Show me one piece of paper that transfers the 100% founding shares from Eleanor Hayes to Arthur Vance." Harrison was silent. His hands were shaking. He looked at Arthur. Arthur Vance's face was the color of ash. He was right. There was no paper. He had meant to do it, back in 2011. But it was too complex. He'd just given himself a massive phantom stock package as CEO instead, assuming it was the same thing. It was not the same thing. "Mr. Vance," Judge Reyes said, her voice dangerously quiet, "you come into this court, flaunting your infidelity, attempting to bully your wife with a $50 million gift, all with money from a company that you do not own." Arthur couldn't speak. "You're not giving your wife 50% of your company," the judge said, her fury rising. "You are asking your owner, your boss, for a severance package." Sienna Hayes in the front row quietly picked up her purse. "Your Honor," Anne Harding said, "we have one more motion. It was the amended petition we filed this morning. Proceed. Given this new information, this clarification of ownership, my client, Ms. Eleanor Vance, as the 100% equity holder of Vance Dynamics, called an emergency and sole shareholder meeting this morning at 8 a.m. A what?" Harrison sputtered. "At that meeting," Harding said, her voice ringing with finality, "she voted to dissolve the current board of directors and reconstitute a new one. As of 8:05 a.m., she is the new chairwoman." She slid one last piece of paper across the table. Her first act as chairwoman was to file this, a motion to terminate the employment of the company's CEO, Mr. Arthur Vance, for cause. The word cause hung in the air like poison gas. Arthur Vance finally found his voice. It was not a roar. It was a strangled, desperate whisper. "No, no, you can't. The board. My board. They won't allow this." "Your board?" Eleanor spoke again. She stood up, turning to face him fully for the first time. The invisible woman was suddenly, terrifyingly present. "You mean Robert, from your golf club? And General Peterson, who sleeps through the quarterly meetings? And your old college roommate, Barry? They were your appointees, Arthur, but they served at the pleasure of the shareholder. Singular. Me." "This is illegal," Arthur yelled, turning to the judge. "Your Honor, she can't just fire me. I have a contract, an employment agreement." "We've reviewed that agreement," Anne Harding said, stepping in. "It's a very generous contract. It guarantees you a $20 million golden parachute unless you are terminated for cause." "And what is the cause?" Harrison demanded, trying to regain any footing. "The company is posting record profits. He's a genius." "The cause," Harding said, "is gross malfeasance and misuse of company assets." She looked at Sienna Hayes. Sienna froze. Misuse? Arthur said, confused. My client has, in the last 24 hours, reviewed the company's expense accounts. She's found some irregularities. Harding's voice was sharp, surgical. For example, a $450,000 consulting fee paid to a Ms. S. Hayes last month for brand strategy. Sienna's face went from pale to ghostly. A $1.2 million charge to the company's travel and entertainment account for a 2-week rental of a villa in St. Bart's, an unauthorized use of the company jet for a personal weekend in Las Vegas, a $280,000 McLaren 720s, leased not by you, Mr. Vance, but by Ms. Hayes, and paid for by the Vance Dynamics corporate account. Harding turned to the gallery. In short, Mr. Vance has been funding his affair with company money that belongs to my client. Arthur looked at Sienna. His expression was one of dawning, horrific betrayal. She wasn't just his mistress. She was a line item on a P&L sheet, a piece of evidence. Sienna Hayes stood up. The photographers outside, hearing the shouting, were now pressing against the glass doors of the courtroom, their cameras flashing like strobe lights. She didn't look at Arthur. She looked at Eleanor. And in that moment, the power dynamic of the entire building shifted. The billionaire was a broke employee. The mistress was an embezzler. And the quiet, boring wife was the empress. Sienna, without a word, turned and walked, ran, out of the courtroom, her heels clacking in a staccato of panic. Arthur Vance was alone. "Judge," he stammered, "Judge, please. This is my life, my company. I built it." Judge Reyes looked at him, and there was not one shred of pity in her eyes. "You built a brand, Mr. Vance. You built a public persona. It seems Ms. Vance, née Hayes, built the actual company, and you, sir, have been living in her house, driving her cars and flying her jet, all while planning to throw her out on the street." She looked at the paperwork. The termination for cause seems, to this court, to be spectacularly valid. Your golden parachute is void. Arthur's knees buckled. He gripped the table. My stock options, my executive package, worthless, Harding said. They were granted to you by a board you controlled, but which served at the pleasure of the true owner. They were never ratified by the shareholder. They are paper. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. This hearing, Judge Reyes said, was for a divorce. But it seems the primary marital asset, the company, is not a marital asset at all. It is Miss Vance's sole and separate property, acquired before the marriage was even officially filed. "Wait," Harrison said, a last desperate gamble. "The marriage. Your Honor, the company was founded in 2005. They were married in 2004. That makes it community property. She still only gets half. He gets the other half." He looked at Arthur, triumphant. "A lifeline." Anne Harding smiled, a thin, cold, terrible smile. "I'm afraid Mr. Harrison's research is as poor as his client's memory. They weren't married in 2004. They met in 2004. She produced another document. "They were married on October 14th, 2005. She held up the original incorporation document. "Vance Dynamics was founded on October 11th, 2005. A pause. 3 days before the wedding. It was a kill shot. The company was, by 72 hours, premarital property. Untouchable. 100% hers." Arthur Vance made a small, choking sound. He had incorporated the company in her name to hide it from his creditors, and in his haste, he had done it just before the wedding, sealing his own fate. "So," Judge Reyes said, "let's reevaluate the marital assets, shall we? There is no $18 billion company. There is the San Francisco house, which is jointly owned. The Aspen house is in his name. The Gstad chalet is in her name, the cars, and Mr. Vance's personal bank accounts. Harding nodded. Which we've reviewed. His personal trading account holds approximately $8.4 million. His checking holds $1.2 million, so roughly $9.6 million, the judge said, plus the houses. That is the marital pot. Given Mr. Vance's egregious behavior, his clear for-cause termination, and his attempt to commit fraud upon this court by misrepresenting his assets. She looked at Arthur. I am awarding Miss Vance 80% of the liquid assets. I am awarding her the San Francisco house. Mr. Vance may keep the Aspen house and his personal effects. This divorce is finalized. She struck the gavel. 18 billion to 8.4 million to 20% of 8.4 million. Arthur Vance did the math. He was left with roughly 1.6 million and a ski house. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't even a tech titan. He was an unemployed consultant with a high mortgage. He collapsed into his chair. Arthur didn't move for a full 5 minutes. The courtroom cleared out around him. Harrison and his team of sharks were gone, whispering furiously into their phones, already distancing themselves from the biggest legal implosion in California history. Eleanor and Anne Harding had left immediately. Finally, Arthur stood. He was a hollow man. He walked out of the courthouse, not as a conqueror, but as a ghost. The paparazzi were still there, but their questions had changed. Arthur, is it true you're fired? Mr. Vance, were you ever the owner? Arthur, you're broke. He pushed through them, his hands shaking, and got into... Not the Maybach. The Maybach had been a company car. He had to call an Uber. He went to the penthouse. His keycard didn't work. Access denied. The new board, Eleanor's board, had already locked him out of the company-owned apartment. He was, quite literally, on the street. He checked into a St. Regis hotel using his personal credit card, the $1.6 million he had left in the world, suddenly feeling like pennies. He sat in the dark, the TV blaring his own humiliation on CNBC. Vance Dynamics ousts founder, Vance in shocking divorce. The $1 trillion typo. His phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. Arthur? It was Sienna. Her voice was not seductive. It was sharp, businesslike. You snake, he whispered. You helped ruin me. All those expenses. Save it, Arthur, she snapped. You lied to me. You told me you were a king. You're just an employee, and a bad one. What do you want, Sienna? I'm at SFO. I'm leaving. But I thought you should know. I'm not as stupid as you thought. I'm not as pretty and dumb as you told your friends I was. What are you talking about? The consulting fee? The car? The villa? You insisted, Arthur. You kept saying the company can afford it. My stupid wife is paying for it without even knowing. You bragged about it. A cold sweat broke out on Arthur's neck. And Arthur, she continued, her voice dropping, I record everything, especially when billionaires are bragging about committing fraud. I have, about 18 hours of audio of you, describing in detail how you hid the company from your creditors, how you played Eleanor for 2 decades, how you used company funds to keep me happy. It's quite the archive. Arthur's blood turned to ice. What are you going to do with that? I was going to release it, Sienna said. TMZ offered me $1 million. But then I got a better offer from a much smarter lawyer. Harding, Arthur breathed. She's very good, Sienna said approvingly. She pointed out that if I released the tapes, I might be implicated in the fraud. But if I gave them to her as evidence in a private settlement, I would be granted immunity and a small finder's fee for my trouble from the new company. How much? 5 million, Sienna said. And she's letting me keep the McLaren. It was a lovely conversation. Eleanor even thanked me. She said I was the catalyst she needed. You sold me out, he whispered. You tried to buy me with stolen money, Arthur. You didn't have any money. You were just a high-paid gigolo for your wife. I attached myself to the wrong person. Now, I'm correcting the error. Goodbye, Arthur, and good luck with your next lawsuit. What next lawsuit? Sienna hung up. A moment later, Arthur's phone buzzed again. An email. It was from a law firm he hadn't heard from in 20 years. Mr. Vance, this firm represents the original creditors from your 2005 Apex Logistics bankruptcy. We were fascinated to read the news of your court hearing today, and the revelation of the fraudulent conveyance of assets to Eleanor Hayes to avoid your legal debts. We will be filing a new suit seeking 100% of those original debts, plus 18 years of compound interest. We'll be in touch. He was not just broke, he was negative. Arthur Vance's freefall was not a single dramatic event. It was a series of small, pathetic, and increasingly final doors slamming shut in his face. He sat in the beige and gold anonymity of his 4,000-a-night suite at the St. Regis, a hotel he had chosen because its name sounded like power. Now it was just an overpriced prison. His personal credit card, the one with the $1.6 million into assets backing it, was weeping. For 3 days, he watched his own immolation on a loop. CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business. His face was plastered next to Eleanor's. Vance ousted. The billion-dollar typo. How the trophy wife became the tycoon. He tried to fight back. The first call was to Harrison. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Harrison? The 10,000 an hour shark. He'd disconnected his number? He tried Harrison's private cell. Straight to a full, unfeeling voicemail box. He'd been dropped. He wasn't a client. He was a liability. He tried to log into his company email. Access denied his corporate Amex, the one he'd used to buy, well, everything. He tried to order room service. Declined. He called the front desk. This is Arthur Vance. There's a mistake. The voice that returned was cool, professional, and utterly unmoved. Yes, Mr. Vance. We've been notified by Vance Dynamics, Helios Global, that your corporate account has been frozen. We will need a new card on file for the incidentals and the room charges. He gave them his personal card. He could feel the $1.6 million, his entire new net worth, shrinking. Then, the final, twisting knives. The first was the call from Sienna. She didn't sound seductive. She didn't sound panicked. She sounded like a stockbroker. Arthur, darling, she said. He could hear an airport announcement in the background. She was already gone. Sienna, he breathed, a flicker of hope. You have to help me. You have to tell them it was all me, that the expenses were a gift. Oh, honey, no, she laughed, a sound like glass breaking. You lied to me. You told me you were a king. You were just an employee, a very, very well-paid gigolo for your actual, brilliant wife. You were my trophy, Arthur, and frankly, you've been recalled for a manufacturing defect. You snake, he whispered. You helped ruin me. The expenses. The car. Oh, the car's lovely, she chirped. And I'm keeping it. Turns out, Anne Harding is much smarter than Harrison, and much more generous. What? What did you do? I'm not as stupid as you thought, Arthur. I record everything, especially when my billionaire-in-name-only boyfriend is bragging about committing corporate fraud and using company funds to keep his little plaything happy. I have, about 18 hours of audio of you, describing in detail how you hid the company from your creditors, how you played Eleanor for 2 decades, how you bragged that she was paying for me. Arthur's blood turned to ice water. What are you going to do with that? I was going to release it. TMZ offered me $1 million. But then Anne Harding offered me a better deal. She pointed out that if I released them, I might be implicated. But if I turned the tapes over to her as evidence to support a for-cause termination, I would be granted full immunity and a small finder's fee for my trouble from the new company. How much? He choked out. $5 million, Sienna said, sounding genuinely pleased. She's letting me keep the McLaren, too. Eleanor even thanked me. She said I was the catalyst she needed. I attached myself to the wrong person, Arthur. Now, I'm correcting the error. Goodbye. She hung up. He was not just fired. He was evidence. The second knife was an email. It landed in his new, pathetic Gmail account. It was from a law firm he hadn't thought about in 20 years. Kensington and Pyle. Mr. Vance, this firm represents the original creditors from your 2005 Apex Logistics bankruptcy. We were fascinated to read the public court transcripts of your divorce hearing and the revelation of the fraudulent conveyance of assets to Eleanor Hayes to avoid your legal debts. We will be filing a new suit in federal court seeking 100% of those original debts, plus 18 years of compound interest. We look forward to deposing you. He did the math. The original debt was $2 million. With 18 years of compound interest, it was over $8 million, the 1.6 million TUS he had left. It wasn't a nest egg. It was a down payment on his new, permanent state of debt. He wasn't just broke. He was negative. He was less than zero. He was, for the first time in his life, well and truly poor. 6 months later, the cover of Forbes magazine hit the stands. It was not Arthur Vance. It was Eleanor Vance. She was not in a sheath dress. She was in a deep red, perfectly tailored Armani power suit. Her hair, once pulled back in that mousy, simple bun, was cut in a sharp, modern style that framed her face, highlighting her intelligent, clear eyes. She was not smiling. She looked, quite simply, in charge. The headline, The Quiet Hand. How Eleanor Vance built and took back her $20 billion empire. The article, written by a star journalist named Jessica Chen, was a cultural phenomenon. It showed the transition. Jessica described Eleanor's first day as chairwoman. She had walked into the penthouse office, looked at Arthur's $200,000 antique warship desk, and had it removed. Not sold. Removed. Replaced by a clean, white and steel modern console. She'd called her first board meeting. Arthur's hand-picked allies, Robert from the golf club, General Peterson, Barry, his college roommate, had been there, ready to handle her. Eleanor, darling, Robert had begun, patting her hand. A terrible business. But we can fix this. We'll give Arthur a retirement package. You'll be a silent partner again. And we can all... Mr. Davies, Eleanor had interrupted, her voice cutting through the room. You're fired. She had gone down the line. General, your service is no longer required. Barry, thank you for your time. Your access is revoked. They had sputtered. They had threatened. Anne Harding had simply handed them the paperwork. As the sole shareholder, Anne had explained, Ms. Vance dissolved the board at 8:05 a.m. yesterday. This is just a courtesy. The Forbes article detailed what happened next. The company, rebranded as Helios Global, had seen its stock, after an initial plunge, skyrocket by 40%. Why? The journalist Jessica had asked. Because, Eleanor explained, her voice quoted in the article, Arthur had neglected the core product. He was obsessed with acquisitions. He was buying companies to look busy. He forgot that the Helios AI was the engine. It turned out that for 20 years, from her home office, Eleanor had never stopped coding. She had been quietly refining her original algorithm, building Helios 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0 in private. The week after she took over, she pushed her new version to the company's servers. Arthur's Helios was a bloated, show-off piece of code, a senior engineer was quoted. It was a sales demo. What she built, what she'd been hiding, it wasn't just an upgrade, it was a generational leap. It doubled our efficiency overnight. She hadn't just been the owner, she'd been our secret, unpaid R&D department. The article detailed her new board: Dr. Aris Thorne, the head of AI at MIT, General Rhett Mariam Khan, the former head of U.S. Transport Command, Dr. Lena Petrova, the best cybersecurity analyst in the world. Arthur liked to be the smartest person in the room, Eleanor's quote read. I prefer to be the one who's learning. And in a small, final sidebar, the article detailed the fate of Arthur Vance. He had, as predicted, been sued into oblivion by his apex creditors. To pay the $8 million settlement, he had been forced to sell the Aspen house and declare personal bankruptcy. He had been spotted, the article noted, at a tech conference in Austin, TechSpire 2026. It wasn't a lie. He was there. The article didn't capture the full humiliation. It didn't capture Arthur in his off-the-rack, polyester blend suit from a men's warehouse, sweating in the Austin humidity. It didn't capture him holding a flimsy, self-printed business card, Vance Consulting Group. It didn't capture the moment he spotted Benji, a low-level VC from Andreessen Horowitz, who used to beg him for 30 seconds. Benji! Benji! My man! Arthur had called out, his voice too loud, too desperate. Benji turned. His eyes widened, not with awe, but with pity. Oh. Hey. Arthur. I've got a new thing, Arthur pitched, his words tumbling out. It's blockchain AI. It's logistics. But on the chain, it's revolutionary. Apex 2.0. Apex? Benji winced. Dude, really? Not the best name. It's ironic, Arthur said, trying to laugh. Look, Arthur, Benji said, checking his watch. I got a run. I'm meeting the Helios Global team. They've got this new AI. It's insane. They're the real deal. They're her. Benji walked away, joining a group of people who were laughing, heading toward the real party. Arthur was left alone. A janitor swept near his feet. A couple of college kids walked by, looked at him, and whispered, Dude, I think that's Arthur Vance. Who? You know? The guy. The one who got fired by his wife. The billion-dollar loser. My God, is he wearing Hager? Arthur flinched, turned, and shuffled out of the hall, the sound of the party, his old world, fading behind him. He was a ghost, haunting a house that was no longer his. The final scene of this story is not in Austin. It is back in the penthouse office. It is night. The city is a carpet of jewels below. The office is transformed, clean, minimalist, functional. The only personal item on Eleanor's desk is a small framed photo. It's not of her children. It's a picture of the Moonlight Diner in Palo Alto. A reminder. The door chimes. Come in, Anne. Anne Harding enters. She too is transformed. She's still sharp, but her severe suit has been replaced by an elegant, dark blue designer dress. She is no longer a small-time probate lawyer. She is the lead counsel and strategic advisor for a $22 billion global corporation. You wanted to see me? Anne says, sitting. Trouble with the SEC filings for the Shipcore acquisition? No, those are fine, Eleanor says. The deal for Shipcore will close on Friday. They accepted our offer. Their board folded. Good. It's a smart buy. It guts Arthur's old competitors and gives us control of the Pacific shipping lanes. That's not why I wanted to see you. Eleanor slides a tablet across the desk. On the screen is the news article about Arthur's bankruptcy. Vance bankruptcy finalized. Ex-CEO surrenders Aspen home. Anne nods. The Apex creditors are finally getting paid. It's over. Is it? Eleanor asks. She taps the screen. He's left with nothing. Not even the 1.6 million. He is what he made himself, Eleanor, Anne says, her voice firm. He is the sum of his choices. You didn't do this. He did. From the moment he put that company in your name to hide his debts, to the moment he strutted into that courtroom with her on his arm. This was a suicide 18 years in the making. I know, Eleanor says, closing the tablet. She stands, walks to the massive glass window. I know, it's just strange. To build an empire to protect it from your enemies, only to have the man you loved become the biggest threat of all. He wasn't a threat, Eleanor, Anne says, joining her at the window. He was a mascot, a very loud, very expensive mascot. The real work was always being done by you. Eleanor is quiet for a long time. The city lights reflect in her eyes. The Shipcore acquisition, she says, her voice changing. It's not just about the shipping lanes. I've been reviewing the Helios 4.0 data. And the algorithm is predictive. It can predict shipping. It can also predict energy consumption, grid failures, solar flare activity. Anne's eyes light up. Eleanor, what are you saying? I'm saying, Eleanor says, a small, dangerous smile touching her lips for the first time. We can optimize the entire national grid. Anne is stunned. Eleanor, that's not a company. That's a utility. That's a $1 trillion idea. Eleanor nods, her eyes fixed on the lights of the city. Arthur wanted to be a sun god, she says. He was so busy posturing, he never realized he could have just owned the sun. She turns back to her desk. Get the team ready, Anne. I want a proposal on my desk by Monday. A proposal for what? We're going to buy a power company. She was no longer the ballast. She was the engine. She had not been the trophy. She had been the vault. And now, the vault was open, and she was finally ready to build. In the end, Arthur Vance wasn't destroyed by a legal loophole. He was destroyed by his own arrogance. He saw his wife as an object, a relic of his past, and he forgot she was the architect of his entire life. This story is a brutal reminder. Never, ever underestimate the quiet person in the room. They are almost always the ones holding the real power. Eleanor Vance didn't just win a divorce. She reclaimed her company, her legacy, and her name. What do you think of this incredible story? Do you think Arthur got what he deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories of drama, justice, and incredible twists, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. We have so many more stories to tell. Thanks for watching.